podcast.
Well, it's dog. It's dog issues that we always have before the shows. I've had many too.
Yeah, I think you got into my kids' candy.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's
Oops.
only dark chocolate that'll kill him. You're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Because this morning, all I could hear was his stomach growling. I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it strange that dark chocolate is the best chocolate for humans, and it's the worst for dogs to eat?
I'll be right back. I gotta go figure out my lighting so I don't look like a tomato. 1 second.
Crazy.
Josh, have you seen this trend? I don't know what's going on. I've just seen a number of people on Facebook, on Twitter, who have been doing some sort of challenge.
The ice bucket challenge.
Yes, the ice bucket challenge. What is it?
ALS, I think, or something like that.
Okay, yeah, but now it's like they're doing the challenge and then they're daring other people to do the challenge.
Yeah, I know. I'm afraid someone's gonna say me soon.
Well, it's strangely, just of course, me connecting it to the Leafs. Former Leafs Nikolai Kulemin and Mikhail Grabovski were, they posted on Instagram, or at least Kulemin did, him getting the bucket of ice poured on him, and then after he has it poured on him, Grabovski pops out of the swimming pool and says, "I challenge Dave Nonis and Randy Carlyle."
That's funny.
I somehow think that the challenge will not be offered by them, and honestly, it's like or will not be responded in kind.
You think so?
No, I don't think so.
I don't even think they'll respond.
I don't think they'll respond. Period. I mean,
Yeah.
It's clear. There's clearly still some animosity left with Grabovski after 2 years after being bought out of the contract, and honestly, I know that there's a segment of the egghead segment, the Corsi fanatics who think that Grabovski is the bee's knees and that they should have kept him and let somebody else walk because his possession numbers were great. But he had a horrible year with the Caps last year, and I think that the signings of him and Kuhlman in New York were the biggest overpayment next to our buddy from Edmonton, Mr. Nikitin, than any contract that was signed. I think they were vastly overpaid, but we'll see what happens during the season. Did you see any good movies this weekend?
Did I see any good movies? Well, I got that. I know why you said that. Oh, yeah. I think 90% of the movie, Scarlett Johansson's not wearing any clothes. So
now, this is a movie called Under the Skin, and I'm fairly sure that it's. I'm into movies, and I'm fairly sure that the name of the director is Lars von Trier. And he's one of these, sort of avant-garde Swedish directors. But let's just say if you like Scarlett Johansson and you like Scarlett Johansson wearing little or nothing, this is a movie for you.
Yeah. Yes. Like I said, I give it to you when I drive by in a couple weeks. But I think it was right after she had the baby too. Like, she is very nicely figured. Like, amazing.
Well,
like I had to rewind a couple times because I didn't believe what I just saw. I'm like, wait a second, let me rewind that.
Sure, that's why you rewound it.
Yeah. Under the Skin, Ek. Check it out.
Under the Skin. All right.
Don't watch it with your wife, though.
Well, maybe if you're on vacation.
Yeah.
You don't know what.
Without the kids.
Like, just kidding.
Yeah. Don't watch it with the kids.
That's red now. That's better, right?
Yeah, a little bit better.
Looks fine.
All right, a little less red.
I watched The Chef yesterday, which wasn't bad.
Was that the one with Jon Favreau?
Sorry, Chef, it's called. Yeah, John. It's really good cast, actually. Scarlett Johansson's in that as well, but she's fully clothed. Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, he's
John John Leguizamo.
Yeah, Favreau has directed all those because he directed some of the Iron Man movies.
Mhm.
So that's where,
Okay.
yeah.
Everyone's Robert
Ask him to do a little favor, and there you go.
Yeah, it was a pretty good movie. It was pretty funny.
I am eagerly awaiting, and this, I like, artistic movies. I like all kinds of movies, dramas, historical movies, comedies. I am so excited and so interested to see Expendables 3.
I watched that the other day.
How was it?
I don't know why you're.
Did you like the first two Expendables, or did you see the first two Expendables?
I did.
It's the story of the Maple Leafs' fourth line. Is that what it is?
I did. The first one was good. The second one was like, this was kind of the same. And then the third was like, really?
Well, I mean, if it's the same as the first two, I'm in. And plus, you got, new basically semi-retired action heroes and Wesley Snipes, Antonio Banderas, and Mel Gibson and Harrison Ford. I mean, you can't pass that up. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I think it got like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. So.
Well.
Yeah.
I hear Harrison Ford is in it for like 3 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I want to go see Lucy next.
Lucy's awesome. I saw it.
Was it good?
I liked it.
This is another.
I like.
Johansson movie.
You're in a Scarlett Johansson stalker fest here.
I think so. Well, after seeing Under the Skin, you want to see every movie she's ever in again.
Well,
Lucy is funny. It's got a dumb ending, but it's funny. I mean, it's really it's funny. It's you can I have
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, the guy who directed Lucy is the same guy who directed, to my mind, one of the best movies made in the last 20 years, which was The Professional.
Yeah.
With Gary Oldman and a young Natalie Portman. I mean, Gary, if you want the preeminent villain in any movie,
Yeah, that movie's amazing.
Gary Oldman as the corrupt cop in The Professional is fantastic. I mean, he's good in anything, but in that movie, he is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you guys see the Planet of the Apes movie yet?
No,
No.
but I want to.
No, I'm not really into that.
Not into apes running your society, Mike? Yeah, I hear that.
No, I have enough of apes in my family. Oh, never mind. Sorry.
I
Just
hear
kidding.
you. Yeah.
Sorry, family members. Just kidding.
Yeah, I got you. Definitely.
Ah.
All right, let's start the show. For those of you in the chat room saying that I look like I've been working out, I don't know. I didn't used to work out. I think things are getting better now. It's working better, I think. So I guess I am working out. Here you go.
And I just finished my green shake.
We can work it out.
Try to see it my way.
By the way, they invented vanilla Thai now for this program. I'm curious to try that one.
It's where is this like something that was a national holiday in Thailand? I would think it would be.
No, vanilla Thai, like for this for the Purium program I'm on.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Monday, August 11th.
No spoilers. Don't worry, guys. We won't spoil you. You know what? Okay, so I got to think. Let's just sit more erect.
What? I don't want to know.
Nothing. Just sitting.
I just heard the word erect, and I
Sitting
really...
more erect. I said. I'm slouching. I was like this. I'm like.
Not touching that one.
I can always. Yeah. Thanks.
Especially after watching Scarlett Johansson movies.
Oh my lord! All right, guys, we have a woman on tonight. By the way, if you're in the chat room, even if you're not, we're gonna be filming another episode of the HockeybuzzCast tonight, around 6:30ish. So and we're gonna be having Katie Brown on from Washington. So be on your best behavior. We're not gonna be releasing this show until next week, but we will be filming it at 6:30 tonight on the YouTube feed. So if you check out the YouTube feed, you'll see it. And then it'll disappear, but it'll come back next week. So just if you want to watch it live and be a part of our chat room, that would be cool. 6:30 Eastern Time tonight with Katie Brown.
Oh, we're doing the second show at 6:30 tonight?
We are, Josh. Yes. If you can't, that's okay. No worries if you can't.
Is that going to be?
That's not gonna be every day. No, it's just today. Yeah. I did tweet. I think I texted that out, but I may have just texted. I thought I texted to the Mike NU feed.
Yeah.
Sorry if I did it just to the Mike.
No.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it later. It's okay if you can't do it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. If you can't do it, that's fine. All right, can we start Hockey Talk now? Sure.
Yes. Monday, August 11th.
Okay, here we go. I have some things to just bring up my notes. 1 second. All right, then. Here we go. Hey, Hockey World. It's Monday, August 11th, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeybuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. Happy Monday. Only for those of you with children, this is your last week of freedom. This is the last week of the children go to camp, in the U.S. at least. So next week there's 2 weeks of kids around the house, which is always kind of fun. Yeah, even if you don't, that's what's happening. So yeah, so we are here, and a couple things real quick. I have to apologize about one thing. We had a really great show on Friday about our teams, all-time teams, and everything like that. Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, the only thing that went wrong with it is I screwed up, and when I was putting the thing together, skipped a team, which is just like me. So I skipped the Colorado Avalanche team, which you guys voted as actually the 8th best team of all time. So it just changes the matchups a little bit, not all that much, but we'll talk about when we actually go into individual games. We're still figuring out a way to do that. We have some ideas. We're going to have some people on and some guests. I'm going to have some fun stuff in here as well. But yes, second show tonight later for those of you watching in the pre-show. All right, okay, so here we go. What we are doing today, I'm just going to go down some news items because there's a couple news things, and then we can talk about what you guys want to talk about in the chat room and anything you or Mike, you or Josh have. But just off the wire, only a few minutes ago, came down the news that Rob Blake's number is being retired by the number 4 to be retired by the LA Kings. 9:45 LA time. That's what I was. So yeah, this brings up is Rob Blake? I mean, it does bring up the whole discussion of retirable numbers, of course, and of course you guys are both in a city where they just don't believe in such a thing. I'm in Philadelphia here, where they have retired a few numbers, but aren't going to be retiring Eric Lindros's number apparently, which is just in case we ever do get Patrick Kane here. So yeah, but yeah, they're this is Rob Blake. Is Rob Blake worthy of a retired number? That's my question for you guys. Mike, you want to start with this?
I mean, I think he is. I mean, okay. 240 career goals as a defenseman. And we talked about Blake before on one of the previous webcasts where, I think it's sort of out of sight, out of mind with him, because when he, most of the first half of his career, how many people saw LA Kings games? I mean, we saw them in the playoffs when they made the finals in '93, but really, we didn't see a ton of LA Kings games. And he, right. in the first half of his career, his stats are fantastic. I think we got more of a glimpse of him as the quality player that he was when he went to Colorado.
Right.
And the thing is, even at the tail end of his career, even with San Jose, even like when he was a little long in the tooth, he was still a very good defenseman, capable of playing a lot of minutes. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a Hall of Famer, and I completely agree with his number being retired by the Kings. And I wouldn't be surprised if it hasn't already. I wouldn't be surprised if his number is retired with Colorado.
Wow, I don't see. I can see it with the Kings, perhaps. Maybe Colorado. I think that, I think that this comes down to number, what you consider a retired number. Like to me, it's above the Hall of Fame in a different way. But I'll give my thoughts after Josh. Josh, what are your thoughts here?
I'm going to be boring here. I'm going to agree with Mike.
That's fine.
He's a Hall of Famer. He deserves to have his number retired. He had a great career. He did a lot of things for the LA Kings, even though we didn't win a Stanley Cup. But I agree with Mike. I think he should have his jersey retired.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Let me not be as boring as Josh.
Thanks.
No problem.
Equally as boring as me. Thank you.
It's easy for me to be. I mean, after a weekend of like sitting down the shore, I really just want to be boring right now. But let's talk about the Kings' numbers that they've retired so far in their history. They've retired Rogie Vachon's number 30. That makes sense because he was the Kings for, the first until 1990 basically.
Right.
Well, he and Marcel Dion, right? So Dion was 16, Dave Taylor 18 is retired. I wasn't told. I remember when Taylor was number retired. I sort of was in the same boat as I am Blake, but not quite. Marcel Dion to me is a definite retired player, no question about it. Rogie Vachon, definitely, and of course they retired Wayne Gretzky's number, which everybody did, but they did, and they had to. And then Luc Robitaille, who I completely agree with. Robitaille is Mr. King to me, and still Mr. King, and still works for that. But those are the only numbers that are retired. So other players have worn Blake's number 4. And that's the kind of situation that is interesting, because that's another thing to me that sort of signifies a retired number. Like and the Flyers have never retired Pelle Lindbergh's number. Let me just throw this out there from my own personal perspective. They've never retired Pelle Lindbergh's number, mostly because of the way it all went down with Lindros dying in a drunken car accident. And that people felt that there was a lot of perception of like, okay, wow, other people were really injured in that accident too, and is it, that sort of tainted his career. But that being said, no one has worn number 31 since then. No one has worn number 31 in Philadelphia, and when goalies have come in and asked for it, even there's been sort of an unwritten thing about, well, we're not going to ever retire, we're not going to ever have a number 31. So they haven't officially retired it, but they have,
Well, I mean, okay, Blake played 20 seasons in the league. He scored in double figures 15 times. And 2 of those years that he didn't score in double figures in goals, he was injured. And one of the years that he didn't score, he only played 3/4 of the year. So you can say that he probably would have scored in double figures for 18 to 20 years. I mean, to me, and I know, scoring in and of itself is not determinative of you being a Hall of Famer or you having your number retired, but it is. I mean, when he was a very competent two-way defenseman. He wasn't Phil Housley. He wasn't Paul Coffey. He was big. He played well in his own zone, and he played offensively good. He rushed the puck. He played well in the power play. So, I mean, I have a couple other suggestions for the Kings in terms of retired numbers. If they haven't retired Charlie Simmer.
Right. I mean, he's the other member of the Triple Crown line, right? So I thought that too. Yeah, I mean, there's also something about the fact that Blake won a Stanley Cup with Colorado that actually works against him in my mind. And it probably shouldn't, okay, but he goes away and wins, and that, I mean, okay, maybe it's because of my upbringing, right? In Philadelphia, Bernie Parent's number is retired, and he was only a Flyer. Bobby Clark's number was retired, and he was basically only a Flyer too. And I mean, these guys they didn't have a bigger career after they left. Someone in the chat room brought up a really interesting point. It's like that they let me see who it was exactly. Because I really liked it. Man, I'll try to find it later. I'll try to find out who brought it up. Oh, okay, Jim Thornburg wrote it. The fact that Colorado retired Bork's number always puzzled me. And I'm kind of with him on that. That's another. See, that's like, now I know Ray Bork won a Stanley Cup there, but he only played, 3 years there? Mm-hmm. To me, retired number is like an epic thing. It's like this player, there's no way you can ever imagine anyone else wearing that number for that team. Because they've been there for that long, and I know it has more to do with than stats. It's like that player is that number. Like 16 in Philadelphia is Bobby Clark. That's not going to get changed.
I think that's more a product of the fact that that was a team that was transferred from Quebec. They were looking to carve out their own history.
Right.
And Bork is an all-time great player. Not that 77 was going to get retired throughout the league, but he is one of the best. I would say one of the top 10 defensemen of all time.
Right.
I mean, you could make a case for that. I mean, guys like Forsberg and Sakic for that organization, they should be retired. And I'm not sure whether the Avalanche respect the retired numbers or players who played for Quebec. I mean, if that was the case, they should retire Michel Goulet and Peter Stastny for their accomplishments with the Nordiques.
Definitely. Josh, your thought?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an ongoing trend here, guys. When players when players are selected to the Hockey Hall of Fame, teams will usually retire their numbers. Niedermayer and Pavel Bure come to mind. The last, both were last year. But actually, Joe Sakic's number is retired in Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, Forsberg's
And
not.
and so was Forsberg, and last year they
Right.
retired Adam Foote's number.
Right.
I didn't know they had done Forsberg's. Okay. All right, so those are all right, and yeah, you're right. And there's different criteria for different teams, obviously. In Philadelphia, we have Bill Barber's number, but Reggie Leach's number is not retired. That's always been a strange thing. I mean, Reggie Leach was, still holds the record, or has the record for playoff goals, I believe, or something like that. He, in one playoff year, I believe. So, and Reggie Leach was a huge part. Rick McLeish's number is not retired. There's certain players from that era team that aren't retired. So it's only Barber, Clark, and Perrant, and then of modern numbers. And then you have number 4, Barry Ashby, who died. And that's another thing that, I said that sometimes when a guy dies, he can retire his number. That's fine. That makes sense. That's a different kind of thing.
Actually, Avalanche have retired Sakic, Forsberg, Patrick Waugh, Adam Foote, and Ray Bourque. And Bourque was there for 2 years. But anyway.
Yeah, and all those others are, obviously. Adam Foote is on the edge to me, but still, he was a great player. I'm not gonna
spent a lot of time in that organization.
A lot of time in that organization, and was that organization. Like, you have to when I think of Ray Bourque, I still think of the Bruins, right? Obviously that's who you think of in your head.
Well, look who the Caps retired. The Capitals first retired Yvon LeBray, if you remember him. He was, for the longest time, he was the only Capitals number that was retired. I remember that in the early 80s. I used to go, Dad, who's that?
Yeah, right. No, and there's other teams that have done that too. Like, what is the Predators? They have a number like that, I think. Or just there's some strange. I get that teams that have been around for a while, won't have retired numbers yet. It makes sense.
Well, the thing is, then you can look at it both sides of the coin. The Montreal Canadiens, they retired their numbers, and you have a bunch of players right now whose numbers are in the 30s and 40s. Yeah. The Maple Leafs, with the exception of, and I'm doing a series on the players who are
numbers.
Their numbers and who are the best who wore that specific numbers. The only ones that are retired are number 5 for Bill Baroka, who died in a plane crash in 1951, and Ace Bailey, whose career was ended by an Eddie Shore cheap hit that fractured his skull, and he never played another game again. The rest of these players, they've honored them, but they keep the number in circulation. So you get a chance to see a Gary Roberts wear the same number that King Clancy wore, or Darryl Sittler wear the same number that Frank Mahovlich wore. So I don't know which is better. There's honoring history, and you go to the ACC and you see all these names up there, but you can also see the jersey being worn by somebody on the ice. Strangely enough, since he retired in, I believe, 2000, nobody in Toronto has worn number 17. Nobody has dared wear Wendell Clark's
and that's not an accident. That's definitely going on in the back rooms, with the trainers and stuff like that. And he's such a legend there.
Yeah. But also look at Nazem Kadri, who wore number 13 with the Marlies, and when he came up, they told him he can't wear 13. So I don't think you'll ever see a Leaf player wear 13 again.
But then, you see, if you're going to do that, then you should simply just.
Then why not retire the number? Yeah,
why not
I'm with
retire
you. Because it is honoring the player. The Devils are one of the more fascinating teams with retired numbers. They they are so. And it goes down to Lou Lamoriello again, who's like, who is the epitome of the name and number on the back don't mean anything compared to the logo on the front. That's Lamoriello's thing, and they've only retired 2 numbers. Ken Denenko. I can never say Kenny Denenko. I can never say his name. Number 3. Yeah. And Scott Stevens, number 4. Now Stevens is, Danico was like, I got it. I know. Danico was he was a really strong Devil when there were no strong Devils, so that made sense. He kept the organization going for a while, and such a great guy in the community and everything like that. He's a big part of that organization still to this day.
Sure. And
Stevens was the same. Stevens, of course, didn't start in New Jersey, but was a New Jersey Devil. But then you look at other players like like Scott Niedermayer, for example. Like if Scott Niedermayer's number's not retired, there's something wrong. That's completely absurd. He won 3 Stanley Cups with the Devils. He was the best defenseman for, in my opinion.
But he left.
He left, exactly.
Left.
And won, but he still won cups there. So I mean, it's not like Ray Bork, who and Bork's number's retired, obviously, but it's not like that. So and then of course Marty Berdore's still playing technically. So in his number, there's no question that Marty will be retired.
Yes.
But
Where did Niedermeyer? Niedermeyer had his jersey number retired
in Anaheim.
Anaheim, I think.
It was in Anaheim.
Yeah.
I believe it's in Anaheim.
Because I'm looking at a story right now from August 1st, 2014. Solani to become first Ducks player to have his number retired.
Okay, then I'm wrong then.
Wait.
So was it New Jersey? Did he have his number?
New Jersey
I don't
retire his
think so.
number? I thought no, they didn't. They definitely didn't.
I don't
His number's retired in Jersey, is it? Ah, shoot, darn it. You know why I'm thinking this?
You're leading me down the path here, Ak. You're telling me.
I apologize.
Devils retired his jersey number 27 in 2011.
There you go.
But they gave away his number.
But how did the Ducks not retire his number?
They will, I'm sure.
And what about Paul Correa? You don't retire Paul Correa's?
Well,
I mean, he was the first big name in Anaheim.
Yeah, he was. I mean, you would think so, right? So
Yeah.
I am such an idiot. Sorry about that.
yeah, but
It's
based on his length of service and his prominence in the league and respect throughout the league, I think that Solani is probably the one they wanted to retire first.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
I mean,
true.
he's the clearly the best player that has ever played for that organization and played the longest. I mean, you could say Pronger might be better, but he didn't play as long there, and I don't think Pronger's number is going to be retired in Anaheim.
Yeah, I think
Niedermeyer's got to be retired soon.
Yeah, I probably will. He ended his career there. He ended in good standing. I would think it's the case.
He's on the coaching staff now.
Yeah.
He's an assistant coach. By the way, I want to throw this out there. Speaking of assistant coaches, Perry Pern just got hired as the Vancouver Canucks assistant coach. So this is his fourth Canadian team that he's been an assistant coach with.
Wow, he's going for that.
Senators, Canadians, Jets, and now the Canucks.
He's got to go get his card holes punched,
Yeah.
Sixth Canadian team, you get one free.
It's funny. Poor Perry, he's the guy who always gets fired whenever something needs to be shaken up with it.
Yeah, he is.
It's sad. Montreal and Winnipeg, same thing happened.
Yeah, his name was bandied about when Toronto was looking for their assistant coaches, but there was a previous relationship there with Carlisle. But glad that he found a job.
He's like the first guy that they always send down in Star Trek to the planet. Go check this out.
Chief Security Officer Wilson.
Yes. Always go check that out. I know. So.
Can you go in the house where the murder is? It's like a horror movie.
Right.
You go ahead. You're first.
Yeah. I hear it creaking down the basement. I think I'll go down there now. Yeah. I know. So I apologize on my New Jersey rant, but this is the thing about New Jersey. Okay, we'll throw this out there. Okay, that Niedermeyer left New Jersey, went to Anaheim, and they gave his number away right away. If you remember, Stefan Matteau was immediately.
Well, Lou was pissed, wasn't he?
Not really. No, actually, absolutely not. Because he actually encouraged Niedermeyer to go sign with Anaheim. As the story goes that I've heard.
Yes.
He was in the room there with him, and he said, "Listen, I could sign you another contract. Obviously, I'd love to do that, but I know you want to go play with your brother. You want to go win a cup with your brother. You've been a great soldier here. I think you should go play with your brother." And that's Lou Lamoriello, right? So that's why players love to play for him.
He can't offer you as much money, so there you go.
Yeah, actually, he could have. He just thought that Niedermeyer should go and play there.
Will Curtis Joseph's number ever be retired? I think he will.
No, not in Toronto.
No.
Surprisingly, because he's beloved by the fans, but I think what killed that was him leaving after 2002. And the reason he left was not because he didn't love Toronto, because he did. It was him and Pat Quinn just didn't get along. He never recovered from Pat Quinn pulling him in the Olympics.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
He made 2 conference finals in 4 seasons, and he's probably one of the more popular Leaf goaltenders in their history. But I think leaving after 4 years, and he came back late in his career, but I don't think his number will be retired.
An interesting thing to do with retired numbers is always to figure out, okay, like you look at Toronto right now, for example, and Philadelphia, and ask yourself, is there a player on your team right now that you think whose number will be retired?
Kessel.
You think Phil Kessel's number could be retired?
Yeah, because
It's possible.
I think Kessel is going to stay for the 8-year contract, and he's I mean, he's scored, I don't know how many career goals, but it's over 200, I believe.
Yeah,
And he's, 25 years old? He could score 500 goals in his NHL career.
he could. That's true.
And if he does, then I think he's if he does and he gets the Leafs to a Stanley Cup, okay, I know I'm dreaming. If he gets them to a Stanley Cup final or wins a Stanley Cup, then he could be a borderline Hall of Famer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that winning a cup, Josh, what's wrong?
No, I'm just laughing. I know this is a hockey show, but I want to bring this up.
Uh-oh.
Drake, the singer,
Yeah.
is he at all affiliated with the Raptors?
He's basically like he's like a shill for the Raptors. I mean, he's like a talent recruiter for the Raptors.
Because ESPN's reporting that the Raptors are going to be fined $25,000 for anti-tampering comments Drake made at a concert about Kevin Durant.
Yeah, he's buddy. See, that's the thing. Drake is buddies with. He's been buddies with a lot of guys on Toronto FC, and apparently Tim Lewicki used him to, get in touch with the guys like Jermaine Defoe and Michael Bradley, and he's buddies with LeBron, and he's buddies with Kevin Durant. So
why doesn't he do some recruiting for the Leafs? Here's a thought.
I don't think he'd recognize a hockey puck if it was thrown at him.
He grew up here.
I know. So here's another story for you guys. Don Cherry this weekend. Did you hear these quotes? These comments?
Is this about the mansion?
Check it out. Here we go. Don Cherry tells Hockey Canada this is to smarten up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is from Pro Hockey Talk, and this is Darren Mahiban. Okay. Outspoken hockey art analyst Don Cherry was at it again over the weekend, this time voicing his displeasure at Hockey Canada. Cherry believed the Florida Panthers' first overall pick, Aaron Ekblad, should not have been participating in the exhibition scrimmages at Canada's development camp.
Mm-hmm.
Ekblad was concussed during the Canada 6-2 win, of course we know this, and sent home early. On Saturday, Cherry, who's now 80, took to Twitter. I love Don Cherry and Twitter were made for each other.
There's someone tweeting for him, though. He tells them.
Yeah, but he tells them what to do. I mean, yeah, he probably writes it down on a piece of paper, and that's delivered to somebody else who gives it to somebody to tweet. But still, it's him, Don Cherry, and he numbers his tweets. This is what's great about this. I gotta show you guys this. This is
yes.
All right, here we go. This is really worth it. I'm gonna share my little picture here. Okay, so here we go. Don Cherry. I'm upset watching number one. I'm upset watching Aaron Ekblad, the number 1 draft pick, get nailed by a Czech player in a meaningless game and a mini-series for Team Canada. Number 2. This is not really number 2, it's just continuing. The hit was a Scott Stevens special. I ask you, why was Aaron even playing? You know how he's a lock to make the junior club and has a target on his back for being selected first overall in the NHL draft. Robbie Fabry, the sensation from the Montreal Canadiens playoffs, is on crutches. Why? It doesn't make sense. Have the guys that are on the bubble play in these. It doesn't make sense. Have the guys that are on the bubble play in these games. Smarten up, Team Canada. The CHL and NHL are doing you a favor, which of course is spelled O-U-R for you Canadians out there. Mm-hmm. They don't have to let these players. They don't have to let you have these players. What if Sam Reinhart, and Connor McDavid got hurt too? Again, these guys are locks to make the team. Play the exhibition game with the guys you want to see. Your star players getting hurt in a meaningless game in August doesn't make sense. Smarten up. So Don, gave his little 2 cents there. Kind of echoing what you were saying, Mike, to a degree last week.
Yes, and on some things I'm in lockstep with Don Cherry, and other things I find it fairly funny that he makes these pronouncements about Aaron Ekblad, who's an Ontario-based player, but the Leafs' first-round pick, Freddie Gauthier, was also hurt in the same, not the same game, but the same series of scrimmages against Russia, and since he's from the province of Quebec, Don Cherry is Ontario-centric. I swear to God, he doesn't think that the other provinces are Canadian because he's so focused on Ontario and the Ontario Hockey League. And I'm not going to war with Don Cherry because I have all the respect in the world for him.
Yeah.
But, if that observation stands the test for Ontario-based players, it should be for Quebec or Alberta or any other province. Honestly, like I said, and I know Kevin vehemently disagreed with me. I don't think Aaron Ekblad is going to be playing for Team Canada at the World Juniors in Montreal and Toronto this December. So what the hell is he playing for? Playing in this tournament for Team Canada. I mean, I think more than likely, and all indications have been, is that he's going to make the Florida Panthers. He's not going to go back to the to Barrie. He's going to either play with he's going to play with Florida. I mean, it makes perfect sense. If that's the case, he shouldn't be playing in this tournament.
Agreed. Now, Josh, you're Canadian.
Yeah.
You understand how people think up there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I try.
What?
I'm half Canadian, half American. I'm a halfer. Oh, did I lose you guys?
Did we lose Dak? I think we lost Dak.
That's not good.
No, he'll come back.
When he does come back, I got something really good that just.
Let me hear it, Josh. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, so we know owners have gotten involved before with negotiations and signing guys. Ted Leonsis negotiated Ovechkin's 2008 contract. Jeff Vanderbeek from the Devils acquired Kovalchuk. Ed Snyder was involved in bringing Brizgalov. But it appears to be there could be a bit of a power struggle going on in Montreal between Molson and the general manager, Marc Bergevin. In the Montreal Gazette, Jack Todd writes that Molson overruled Marc Bergevin in what appeared to be the club, when it appeared that the club might be saddled with a single-year arbitration contract with the disgruntled star. From Todd, it was Molson's call to sign PK long-term, and it was exactly right, which doesn't mean Bergevin was wrong. Both men were doing their jobs. Bergevin's task is to make an evaluation based on his salary cap and his evaluation of a player's performance. Molson has to take the wider view and consider factors like fan base reaction that really aren't Bergevin's problem. Now, this notion from Todd has been spun in some circles as an indication that Molson and the GM aren't on the same page. Yeah. I wonder if there will be anything else to this or if it'll just go away.
Well, there's a couple things. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good article. It's a good point. There's a couple things to this. First of all, I want to know if Bergevin's running the show or if Michel Therrien's running the show. I've heard different reports there. Not against
your deal. Sorry.
I know. But I'm not just saying that for any reasons particularly. But I do honestly wonder that question. But at the end of the day, to me, and you've been around organizations, Josh, too. This feels like a excuse to sign. Like it feels as if they had to play it. They played it together. I think they're very much in lock, stock, and barrel on this. I think that this is okay. We had to play hardball with him. Bergevin has to play hardball with him, and then Molson can come in and be the good guy. To like
bad guy.
Yeah, and it feels
good cop, bad cop.
It feels like that to me completely. It doesn't feel like there's any kind of discrepancy here, or else Bergevin would have been gone. I mean, if you have a discrepancy with something like this kind of size player, then that's a if you can't get on the same page with PK Subban, you're in worse trouble than that. So I think they're on the same page. I just think that they had to play it this way for future negotiations and all sorts of reasons. And then Mike.
I think what's at work here is it might be a scenario where they're saying that PK Subban is the exception rather than the rule. I mean, they have a bunch of guys who are UFAs in a couple years. They have a couple RFAs, prominent RFAs, in Alex Galchenyuk and Brendan Gallagher coming off their entry-level deals. What's to stop them next year from saying, okay, you gave PK that long 8-year contract, I want the same damn thing. Well, whereas they set the precedent after his entry-level deal of giving him the 2-year bridge deal. And I think that was the whole point of the precedent that Bergevin set when he signed Subban to that deal was we're not going to give you a long-term extension off of the entry-level deal because then we lock ourselves into a deal. You haven't proved everything that we want you to prove, and we're not going to give you all that money up front. So you're going to have to continue to prove to us for a couple more years before we're going to open up the coffers and give you big money.
Yeah. I don't know. Josh?
Yeah, I don't, reading the article, it makes it seem that, what you said basically, that it was a good cop, bad cop scenario going down. I mean, is Bergevin hurt maybe? I mean, is he not hurt, but is he kind of miffed that the owner came in and basically did his job?
Well, yeah,
Maybe,
exactly.
but
I've
but he
seen
signs the checks, so
right.
he
He
can't be
signed the
too.
checks, but I've had okay. I'll just say it flat out. I mean, I had lunch with. I remember having lunch with Brian Burke when he was still general manager of the Anaheim Ducks,
Mm.
and and this is when he was being courted by the Maple Leafs a lot.
Yeah.
And Burke is very much about doing things on the record, so doing things on the right. He remember this guy worked in the NHL offices, so he's very much. So all the discussions that Burke was having talks with the Maple Leafs, they really just weren't true. He really legitimately wasn't doing it because he didn't believe that he's very afraid of getting caught. And he's never negotiated with a guy before July 1st, which sometimes hurt him, that kind of thing. But that's Burke, right? So, and I remember him saying, we had a question about one signing, and I forget who it was. I was talking to him about. It was so long ago, but I said, that signing surprised me. He's like, well, if the owner says sign him, sometimes you got to sign him. Just like that, and that's all he said. And that's sort of what you're saying, Josh. It's like, and now whether or not that is an excuse,
It's probably Bertuzzi.
no, it wasn't. Whether or not that's an excuse or not or whether or not it's, I mean, it's kind of both. It's kind of an excuse and a way out. You kind of have a situation where, okay, now the owner has told me I've got to do this, so now I have. If things don't work out, like Hex, like Holmgren has with Brizgalov in Philly, that's widely known. At the same time, so it's kind of the owner giving the GM a break from criticism, too. So there's a lot of angles of this, but really, when it all comes down to it, if these guys weren't on the same page, they wouldn't be working together still. Right. And that's what I can't get. I mean, and if you're the Montreal Canadiens, you don't have any reason to keep Bergevin on if you don't think he's on the same page with you. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of people who can want to be the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. You're fine coming up with a person who's on the same page with you. You want somebody who's hard on these negotiations to try to make your team as best as you can, and and give you as much cap space as you can. And you want somebody who is also not necessarily a yes man, but somebody at the end of the day they're all yes men. They are but you want somebody who debates with you. And I think that's what I was impressed with Bergevin from way before he was GM of the Montreal Canadiens. I really thought this guy was going to be very successful at this job. I really felt like and I've talked to him, and I've had discussions about Michel Therrien. I get that I'm not on the same page, but he's very firm about what he believes. So he sticks with that, and I also think that there's a big it's the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, so there's a lot. The Molsons had. At the end of the day, was there any doubt that the Molsons would step in? I mean, and make this. I mean, really,
he's a hands-on owner too.
Yeah, it's PK Subban. We all knew he was going to get an 8-year deal, around $9 million a year. We were all talking about that for weeks before it happened, right? So this is not. There was no doubt that that's where it was going. It just couldn't go there right away from Bergevin. It had to go this route so that other players. That's just how I see it.
At a certain point, the ownership has to step in and say, okay, this franchise, not to say franchise value is everything and anything with a situation like this, but this franchise is much better off going forward with PK Subban signed. Because either you keep him and
there's a wrath to incur if you don't have him. I mean, that's the thing. It's whether franchise value or not. I mean, that city,
especially coming off an
Eastern final. Yeah, but it's off with your head. Let them eat cake time in Montreal. You gotta.
Right. I mean, especially coming off the Eastern Conference Final, they're on an upward swing. If they sign him and they have for 8 years, you either reserve him, lock him in for those 8 years, or down the line, if things don't work out, you have him locked up at a certain number for a certain number of years that you can trade someplace else and get something back. So it's a win-win in that sense for Montreal. So, I mean, I think that this is, like you're saying, Ak, I think this is, they're working in concert together, and this is to give Bergevin some leverage in terms of going forward, players not holding up the Canadiens, asking for the same type of deal, the lengthy deal that Subban got. This tells me that they're considering Subban a special consideration and not setting a trend.
Yes, I think they're absolutely 100% right there. And but then that you can do, because that's the case with this player. It just is, So that's the reality of this spot. But yeah, I mean, there's another interesting article that I was reading, and I'm going to go into it. I'm trying to get the authors on. Excuse me. It's a it's really kind of cool. It's strategies for pulling the goalie in hockey. Did you guys see this? And before we get it out, it was by David Beaudoin and Tim B. Schwartz. So I will discuss this further, and I'm going to bring up the article later. I'm not going to do it today, but I did want to get your feeling before I did get these guys on about something, and that is something that I felt this year was really bizarre, which was the Patrick Waugh pulling the goalie syndrome. That took we actually saw like a paradigm shift in the NHL this year, which we never see. You never see a full paradigm shift of pulling your goalie with 3 minutes to go or 4 minutes to go, because Patrick Waugh was doing it and it was working, right? So, is this what I want to ask you guys? Is this a fad, or is this what's going to continue on? Because I think I think it's legitimately could possibly be a fad. That people that I mean, say Colorado doesn't have as great of a season next year or whatever.
Well, I don't. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say, everything seemed to go right for Patrick, so he felt, why not? It's like being at the roulette table and feeling lucky and throwing chips down on 0-0. Like, he basically felt like everything he was going to do was going to work, and it pretty much did.
And he had nothing to lose. He was taking a team, remember, that finished terribly, and they were playing with house money the whole year, so they were in great shape. And that was interesting, but what was more interesting to me was the fact that other teams followed it, that we saw it throughout the NHL, that it became a thing, and as if coaches now had an excuse because, hey, Patrick Waugh's doing it, I can pull my goalie now with 3 minutes left. Mike?
Well, I mean, there's a trend towards outside the box thinking in professional sports right now. I mean, I know in the NFL, a lot of stuff going on with teams going for it on fourth down rather than punting the ball, because the percentages of keeping the ball and where the other team ends up with the ball after it's punted, there seems to be more of a benefit to keeping the ball and trying to get first down. In the NHL, I mean, I know Roy did this, and it did influence other people, but Willie Desjardins, now the coach of the Vancouver Canucks, during the AHL, during the Calder Cup Western Conference Final, his team was down, I think, more than 3 goals on a couple of occasions, and he pulled his goaltender with 10 or 11 minutes left to go in the third period when his team got a power play so he could have a 2-man advantage. So I think that there's a possibility, and now Desjardins is in the NHL. I don't see why that strategy would change if Vancouver is down 3 or 4 goals in the third period, that they would take that risk, because what's the downside? You're going to be down by 5. Okay, you're pretty much cooked if you're down by 4, so you may as well try.
Well, no, and I've always been a fan of that too, and always wondered why people didn't do this. But now, Josh, go ahead. Now they do.
Well, also, in the league, like, teams will see something and they'll like, hey, maybe we should try that. I mean, for instance, I can't remember who the first person to do it was, but I remember the first spinorama we saw in the shootout.
Yeah.
And we started seeing it all the time. I think it was a guy in Edmonton that first did it. Was it Omar? Was Omar the first one that did it?
No, or was it, what's his name? The other guy, I know who you're talking about. Was it the guy from the first person I saw do it was the guy from the Islanders who ended up in Edmonton. The kid who was like such a highly touted prospect but couldn't get it together. But yeah, it was somebody like that.
Yeah, because then we saw Grabowski doing it, Mason Raymond doing it, like all these players, would use that on the shootout, right?
Right, and it's and this is like Johnny Rambling Johnny in the chat room says, when somebody gets a great idea, you'd be a fool not to steal it. Okay, yeah, I get that, and like Mike said, if you lose by 4, 3, 2, you still lose. It doesn't matter, right? So that's been always my theory, right? So, but we haven't seen that for years in the NHL, and then this year suddenly we saw a lot of it, and because there is also the part of pulling your goalie that is that if there's 4 minutes left, you've got your team's got, each player has at least like 1, possibly 2 more shifts. You've got time to score this goal without pulling your goalie and without risk. But if you give up a goal right away, now you're 2 goals down. So I think this is a fad. I do. I think this is going to be. I think that Patrick Waugh is going to do it less too. I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see him. I think this was one of those things that this year was hot and exciting to do. And it reminds me a little bit, like there was the great Gene Hart in Philadelphia whenever a player would whenever a defenseman would take the puck and shoot it up high to clear the zone, he would say "a la Borja Salming." That was an expression I grew up with. He clears the puck high, a la Borja Salming, because Borja Salming was the first defender who that was how he figured out how to clear the puck, was just to lob it over, not ice it, but just lob it over.
Right.
And that became a thing, which really has sort of that. It was very big for a while, but you see it once in a while, but not nearly as much as you did. Partially because people are afraid of hitting it over the glass, but you still see this, So I don't know. I think it's a fad.
And I mean, I believe there was a Montreal defenseman, J.C. Tremblay, in the '60s who used to shoot the puck. He used to lob the puck from his own zone onto the other goal, and scored a couple goals like that, and that started.
Right.
Now the thing is, that still happens. You still, sometimes the goaltender is expecting the dump in, he's expecting the wrap around, and the guy shoots it on net. That's part of what's going on now. I mean, so I'm not so sure it's going to be a fad that's going to be, just like the shift in baseball right now. All these teams are shifting.
Yeah, the shift in baseball is a good example.
Left-handed pull hitters. They're moving all their infielders to the right, or 3 of the 4 infielders to the right side of second base. And these players are having a tough time getting hits. The thing is, eventually the hitters are going to adjust. They're going to start bunting down the third baseline. They're going to start hitting the opposite field.
Right.
What could the other team do to adjust to a team that pulls their goaltender with 10 minutes left to go and has a 2-man advantage? I don't know. I mean, does the goaltender start to shoot the puck down the ice and try to score the goal? I mean, maybe you'll have a goaltender scoring race here where Jonathan Bernier leads with 5 goals.
Right, and and Hextall scored that goal, and that did bring about a lot of change, right? And we saw other players, other goalies trying to do it, but it's a really hard tactic to take over. But what to me is the most fascinating thing maybe about this whole Patrick Roy thing is it actually, he actually got. It was basically named for him. Like what you would see watch any game, pulling the goalie early on. The announcer would say, like Patrick Roy. It would be every time. It would never be just like, oh, he's pulling the goalie early. It's like he's pulling the goalie early, aka Patrick Roy. It became in 1 year became a big thing, and it changed. We saw it down to the playoffs. It happened.
And what that is, Zach, that shows how in the world of social media, in the world of the NHL Center Ice package, where everybody sees the game and everybody's commenting on games, and you can go back and watch the replay or watch highlights on YouTube. I mean, 25 years ago, they wouldn't know what the hell you were talking about when you were saying, okay, this guy's pulling a Roger Nielsen or something like that.
Right.
You wouldn't know because only people in Toronto or only people in Vancouver saw what Roger Nielsen was doing.
Roger Nielsen, right? That's a great example, and and then other people did that too. Mike Keenan became notorious because he was a Roger Nielsen disciple. He would pull his goalies back and forth, like he'd pull a goalie just for a second, put the other goalie back in, just to kind of get a break. And then a la Billy Smith. I mean, everybody knows what that means, right? From our era. If you said a la Billy Smith, that meant, as a goalie, your goalie was hacking at somebody's knees in front, because Billy Smith was known for taking out guys' knees and taking out the backs of guys' shins or ankles, with his stick as a goalie if you were in front of him. So
or butt ending somebody with the butt end of a stick that didn't have tape on it.
Right. And as a goalie, growing up for me, I was growing up in the era where Hextall was coming to be, and where I hadn't been trained to really handle the puck at all, and suddenly as a goalie growing up, you had to, in our area especially, if you played goal and the puck came back to you, you had to handle it and make these great passes because everyone was watching Hextall do it on TV, and I gave away more than 1 goal trying to handle the puck, way more than I should have, because I was never taught that.
But this has always been a copycat league.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons that Bobby Orr was so influential is because before Bobby Orr, was there one defenseman out there who skated like him, who jumped into the offensive attack? No. Yeah. He was the best player in the league. In my mind, he's the most impactful player in the history of the league because of that reason.
Right.
And now, if you don't have 1 or 2 defensemen who can carry the puck, skate in the zone, and create, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no question. And I mean, and we've all seen, go behind the net, a la Wayne Gretzky. There's also every player. There's plenty of these things. You could probably make a really good story about the players who sort of defines particular moments. Like, and we've seen it. We've seen it plenty. Grant Fuhr style goaltending. We've seen that. There's certain expressions that just kind of have stuck, right? Um, So yeah, but yeah, it was good stuff, guys. Today, I wanted to address before we left the rumor that I put up late last night and the Flyers rumor. And this kind of surprised me. Yesterday was a really, really slow rumor day in the hockey world. I mean, just beyond. I mean, you probably can't get more slow than this weekend and next weekend. I mean, during the week you might get rumors, but during the weekends in August, oof, boy, it's hard to find anything out there to talk to anybody. I mean, no one's around. People are on vacation.
Where's my pillow?
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's mellow. But last night, 11 o'clock at night, I get a text from like 3 people. Oh, the Flyers are really trying to go after, Zach Bogosian. And what I was basically hearing was the same thing was that because the Flyers have to clear cap space, which pretty much means moving LeCavier some way, shape, or form. And that's not going to be easy to do. And they may have to give up another player to do it.
Schenn for Bogosian.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. They're not going to move Braden Schenn or Luke Schenn. But Hextall, remember, coming from L.A. and really wanting to model the Flyers after the Kings, the Flyers don't have a Drew Doughty. And when, and I mean, not many people do. I mean, I think, in my opinion, like Jacob Trouba is probably the closest thing to the next Drew Doughty. But he's, and he's not the guy the Jets are ever going to give up right now. So, but I think they really want to, the Del Zotto signing was not the fix-all. They even with Tiemann in there, they were still trying to make this kind of a move. They feel like they need this kind of defenseman. So the problem is LeCavier won't play for a Canadian team apparently, and that's an issue. And then there's other issues too, and they're going to have to find a way to make this move. I think that at the end of the day, and was there a Bobby Ryan rumor this weekend? Someone said. I didn't hear about that at all.
I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it either.
No.
It's from, I know who it's from, but it's from the guy that throws crap out there and he's wrong all the time. So pay no attention to that guy.
Yeah, let's not
see here. Move along.
Name.
Yeah, no.
I'm not even mentioning his name. Not giving him any pub. He's an idiot.
So
anyway.
it's not a LeCavier for Bogosian move. Okay, it's LeCavier somewhere else. And Bogosian coming in. So that's Bogosian's just the guy that they like, and apparently available for the right price. Because of Trouba coming in. Maybe this is this is what they're thinking. So,
right.
I mean, Bogosian. I always think of Bogosian, Coburn, and Dion Phaneuf together because they all sort of came in the same year in that same draft, which was really, and they were 3 highly touted defensemen at the time, right? So,
the thing is, Zach, the only thing that makes sense though, if they do trade Bogosian and they don't get a defenseman back, is that they are relenting on or at least Paul Maurice is relenting on his decision to put Byfuglien at forward, because we know that Byfuglien wants to play defense, and you would think that. Yeah. Their defense is a little short if they trade Bogosian and don't get a blue liner back.
Yeah, that would have to be Byfuglien moving backwards. I agree, moving back there, and Trouba. And I think that they, although I think they're saying the right words. I think they are going to play. I think they are going to play him, Byfuglien on defense. I do. But that's just from talking to people out there. And I think a lot of it is about kind of keep maintaining some kind of control over the negotiations with other teams and trading, and letting other teams think that they have Byfuglien's very versatile for them in the offseason. They can use him in many ways, put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening there. So so that's to me, yeah. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. And with Bobby Ryan, probably nothing happens with Bobby Ryan until the trade deadline, regardless of what happens. But something could happen at the trade deadline. I don't really see Bobby Ryan re-signing in Ottawa, but that's just, I think Ottawa's looking younger. Josh?
One thing I want to throw out before we go, congratulations to Marco Sturm on a great career. He is the record holder in NHL games and points for a German. Right. He held his retirement farewell event this past Saturday in the Bavarian town of Landshut, where his professional career had started 19 years ago. 5,500 fans filled. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But
You better not.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's been a while since we've been to Land Shut.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Marcus Sturm's a great guy. This is a good story, Josh. I really appreciate you bringing it up because Marcus Sturm deserves better than to be from the land of lands shut. But yeah, no, he's Marcus Sturm. He had a great NHL career, and you know, and I remember covering him in the Olympics too. I just really he was your go-to guy for Germany, and just really solid as could be. So that's excellent stuff. All right, guys. Like we said, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. And if you're around, we're going to be taping a live show tonight at 6:30. That'll be airing at a later date. But so if you're around on YouTube tonight, you can watch us tape it live. But it probably won't be up till next week. But yeah, definitely check it out. And we will talk to you soon. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you then.